Hello, and welcome to Laura in a Minute. Today we're going to talk about the Laura Ingalls Wilder audiobooks, and there is a series of them. Now, the first one was a Hallmark Hall of Fame, or whatever the radio version was called, dramatization of The Long Winter. And it was that dramatization that started the pageant in De Smet that continues to this day. In terms of real audiobooks, though, my favorite is this one by Julie Harris. She was a wonderful actress, probably most mainstream in Knots Landing as Val's mother, but she also did a lot of Broadway and a lot of other movies and musicals, and she was just great. And that's what she looked like at the time. And she just did such a phenomenal job reading. I am just heartsick that she didn't get to do the rest of the series because this is just amazing. It is interesting though because it's designed for a record player that you load all the records on one side and then they drop one at a time and then you take them out and flip them over and then it plays that stack. So they aren't like 1 and 2 on the same side, 3 and 4 on the same side. But very great. Get them and listen to them if you can. Next up was a series of records recorded dramatizing the books by the Newberry Record Project. The later books in the series won Newberry Honor Books, and so they did a series of recordings on record dramatizing the books. And last but not least, as I'm running out of time, Cherry Jones, another Broadway actress, recorded a complete set of the books for the Harper Brothers Company. Now be aware, she apparently does not know the difference between Mao and Mo, but other than that, I think you'll enjoy them. And you can also find audiobooks of various other books by Laura, or about Laura, including Little House in the Ozarks and The Selected Letters of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Thank you for visiting with me, and that was Laura in a Minute. Hello, welcome to Laura in a Minute. And today we're going to talk about one of Laura's most popular friends in the books, the Bulldog Jack. Now, he is so popular, people buy replica Jacks almost as much as they buy Charlotte dolls. And the home sites all have different patterns. And in fact, if you go one year and then go the next year, they'll be different, most likely. These aren't, for the most part, specially made for the home sites. They're just ones that they were able to find that they thought looked like Jack. Now, most of them you'll see are brown and white. What brindle is, back when people actually knew what color things were, is actually a little bit more like a tiger coloring. And I've got a picture of a brindle bulldog. I think it should be right here. And my favorite Jack that I have is this one right here, which is a China Jack that Scholastic put out. Now, they still are making China Jacks today, and I have some recent examples of that, and lots of stuffed Jacks. So the next time you either go to a Laura home site or plan on buying something from a Laura home site, be sure to put in a Jack because he is well worth it. Good boy, Jack. Oh, and if it happens to be Walnut Grove you're buying from, make sure you get some of their dog treats too. My dog loves them. Hello. Today in Laura in a Minute, we're going to be talking about someone that you might have heard of. They're a writer who wrote about Missouri. They have historical sites showing the places where the characters lived, and there's even a pageant that acts out every summer what happened to the people in the book. And the book was a bestseller. So, who was this person who wrote of Missouri? That's right, Harold Bell Wright. Now, Harold Bell Wright is not as well known as he used to be. It seems like bestsellers don't really have a very long shelf life. Even people who I knew as bestsellers when I was a kid have sort of completely disappeared. Redwall, anyone? But anyway, Harold Bell Wright wrote this lovely book. He wrote other books too, but this is called Shepherd of the Hills, and it came out in 1907, and it was a big hit everywhere. People loved Shepherd of the Hills, and I loved it too when I first read it. Let me give you, this is just the dedication, but the entire book is full of beautiful things like this. To Frances, my wife, in memory of that beautiful summer in the Ozark Hills, when, so often, we followed the old trail around the rim of Mutton Hollow, the trail that is nobody knows how old, and from Sammy's Lookout watched the day go over the western ridges. Isn't that beautiful? The trail that nobody knows how old and Sammy's Lookout are two of my favorite places in this book. And it is a really great romance. The main problem with this book is when I read it as a kid, what I thought was the A story, which is Sammy and young Matt and their everyday life and their interaction with the shepherd, I thought that was the A story of the book. Turns out I was completely wrong, that I had totally glossed over what is the A story of the book, and all the stuff I loved about the book is the B story. And the A story is incredibly classist. Now, I'm deliberately using the term classist here, not just because it fits the situation, but I'm using it deliberately because this is not race in terms of how we would say race. There aren't black characters and white characters. There are white characters of two different classes. They would say two different breedings. And one of the sort of horrors of the book is that it, well, I don't want to spoil the ending for you, but it plays a big role in those people aren't like us. And there is also a bit, as part of that story, that is, I don't know if they were actually Klan members or were just supposed to be, but they were coming after Sammy's father, who is white. So there's just a lot about class in here that totally went over my head as a kid, but it may not go over your head, or it may go over your head too, and you'll just get the beautiful story that is at the heart of the book, as long as you don't as long as the story A doesn't bother you too much. I think that you will love The Shepherd of the Hills. And they do a pageant. It's down by Branson, and when we took my first Laura trip, my family went on down to Branson and we stopped. And this cabin is actually one of the ones they talk about in the book, and it and several other cabins that they talk about in the book are still there, and you can go and tour them. And the last I checked, the pageant was still in production. So if you are planning a Laura trip, dip into Shepherd of the Hills and see if you want to visit those places too. And this has been Laura in a Minute.